Whatever.
Some addresses.
Hi, I'm Colin Tracy. No. Hi, I'm driver engineer Colin Tracy, station 46C. I'm here to talk to you today about the K12 Saw, just kind of the general maintenance, care, and cleaning of it. So as far as the K12 goes, you're going to find these on every suppression apparatus. Parts of the K12, this is going to be your blade guard here. It is adjustable, gives you different angles of cutting depending on what exactly you're trying to do. This is going to be the belt drive arm inside of this casing, which we'll take apart in a bit. You're going to actually find the drive belt for this. On the top here, this is where you're going to find actually your spark plug and your air filter. So on the back side here, what you're going to find is your choke control. This is going to be your kill switch to turn it off. This is going to be your throttle lock, and then your actual throttle trigger on the bottom here. Opposite side here is going to be your pull cord housing. It's what we're going to use to actually start the saw itself. This is going to be your handle for the chainsaw. This allows different areas for you to place your hand depending on the angle you want to use the saw, given straight vertical cutting, or if you have to hold it up in the air doing horizontal cutting for like garage doors or storage facilities. One of the other things to show you, it's hard to see it on camera, is inside of here, you're going to find these metal springs. These are the vibration dampening system. It helps absorb some of the vibration that's created by this saw when you're using it to cut different types of materials. As far as the K12 saws, we have two different types of blades you're going to find around the county. Majority of the time, you're going to find a carbide tip blade, which is what we find on this one here. The other one that you may still find is going to be your diamond tip blade. Diamond tip blade is going to have almost a sandpaper-like coating along each of these teeth here. The big difference is with the diamond tip blade, as you're cutting, you have the ability to sharpen that blade by simply removing it from whatever it is you're cutting, plunge cutting it for a few seconds into some type of soft concrete, whether it be a sidewalk or a driveway, and that'll expose the next layer of the diamond coating on there. Carbide tip does not have that ability. Staying on the blades here, one of the other features you're going to find is these small holes throughout this blade. What that is it's to get air circulating around through the blade to help with active cooling as you're cutting with these blades. So what we're going to talk about next is going to be daily inspection for when we check these saws out in the morning on our apparatus. We'll kind of work our way from the front towards the back. One of the first things we want to check is to make sure that the blade here can free rotate when you go ahead and spin it with your hand. If you don't get any free rotation on there, or it seems like it's really not moving freely, the components inside of this may be misaligned, installed improperly, or too tight. The belt inside of this drive shaft here maybe has too much tension, or it might not be aligned properly on the spindle for it. Make sure we check those, which we'll go over in a bit. Make sure that your blade guard is able to be adjusted and move freely. As we move towards the back, we want to make sure that we have enough fuel inside of it. You got to have fuel to run this saw. These saws use a 50-to-1 mix of gas to oil. We use the pre-mixed stuff. Don't mix it yourself. On the side here, you're going to find the gas cap for it. Most of these here are going to have a flip-up cap for a handle, and then you're going to twist it. You're going to open it up. Look inside, make sure you're filled pretty much to the top. As long as you are, you're good to go. Go ahead and realign it on here. Now when you go to tighten these down, hand tight. Don't tighten it any more than that. I know a lot of the older K12s that don't have this flip up top, that you'll see it have the small slit in the middle of it that you can fit a screwdriver in. Just because that's there doesn't mean you need to take a screwdriver and crank it down. Hand tight only. Next thing we want to check is make sure that our choke control easily pulls in and out. Our kill switch engages and pushes back in. Make sure our throttle freely pulls in and out. Our decompression valve can pull in. And make sure that our throttle cord, when we give it a small tug, not a full one, but that you're hearing the pause inside of it as you pull it, engage out into the spindle, and you can feel it start to turn that motor over. Next part of your daily checkout is going to be a cold start of this saw. Unless it's been run a couple times overnight because the previous crew had a call, this saw is going to be cold. We're going to have to get it going from there. First thing we want to do anytime we start this saw is going to be engaging this decompression valve at the top here. That's going to allow, it relieves the amount of pressure that's stored in the cylinder so that when you pull the starter cord, it doesn't have as much resistance. When we have a cold start, we want to make sure our choke is fully out. So a full choke on that. Other thing we want to make sure we're doing is that the kill switch is in the left-hand position, which is the run position. If you find that it's out, this is going to be the stop position. It will not allow you to start it up. When we go from a cold start, so one thing to make sure we do when we talk about checking out and starting these saws in the morning is make sure you have proper PPE. At a minimum, gloves and eye protection. Eye protection, make sure that it's impact ANSI rated, not just any old type of glasses. In case something catastrophic failure happens and a piece comes flying up at you, you want to protect your eyes. So as we said, we decompress the decompression valve, full choke, kill switch is disengaged. We want to make sure our left hand is on the top of this handle here, your right foot, your toes inside the bottom portion of the rear handle of this. We're going to take our pull cord and we're going to slowly pull till it starts engaging. When you feel it start to engage, go ahead and complete your pull. What's going to happen from a cold start is you will hear it start to turn over. Once you hear it turn over, go ahead, push your choke all the way in to disengage it. And what that will do is then turn it into the idle stage for this motor. If you don't hit this quick enough, what's going to happen is it's still going to be in that full choke. It's going to choke itself out essentially, and it's going to turn off. It's okay if it does. All we do is push the choke in, go ahead, depress the decompression valve, and then start it again, and it'll go right into that idle. So we'll go ahead and I'll start it now. As I said, decompression, full choke, kill switch disengaged. I've got it anchored in the ground. Right there, just turned over once. We'll go ahead and disengage the choke, hit our decompression again. So now we're in the idle speed. What you'll see is when you first start it, you're going to have blade rotation because it's in that ignition phase. What we need to do is hit that trigger one time, and that's going to disengage that start rotation on there and then put the blade into that idle speed for us. You'll see it start slowing down. A properly maintained saw at idle speed should have no blade rotation whatsoever. If it does, we have to adjust our idle speed on the actual saw. If we need to stop it, all we do from here, engage the kill switch. One component also to remember when we talk about a cold start or starting this saw when you do your morning checkouts is looking at this gas bubble here. So this is your primer bubble. If you don't see any fuel in here, you're going to want to give this about 2 or 3 presses until you get a good amount of fuel or liquid inside of this bubble. So it's 1 or 2 presses. I'm looking in there. I got a good amount of fuel. This is ready to go. For this next part, we're going to go over some ways of troubleshooting this saw if you find any problems with it when you're trying to run it or start it. Also, these kind of double as your cleaning and maintenance for it after every use. Or on your truck day if you want to get an in-depth cleaning on your tools. So one of the first parts we're going to start with is this top portion here. This is going to be the air filter housing. Inside of here, you'll find the air filter itself. What you're also going to find is the spark plug inside of here. So I'm going to take this cover off and show you what each of those looks like and how to check them. Most of these covers are going to come with 4 screws at the top here. One of the important things I didn't mention yet is that you want to make sure that whatever type of screw your saw has, you have the correct T-handle. Each one of these saws should have its own T-handle. What I mean by T-handle is on the end, you're either going to have a flathead, I've seen the ones with Phillips, and then you're going to have these Torx bit on here. The other side of these, it should have a wrench on there for tightening and loosening the bolts on here. So we'll go ahead and undo these 4 screws. So we'll remove the whole housing itself. Make sure you either keep the screws in here or set them to the side so you don't lose it. Now inside of here, the 2 things I want you to see is first this is going to be your air intake filter. The second part is going to be this rubber part here, which is the actual spark plug connector itself. So when we move the air filter, this specific model, it has a tension spring on here that I'm going to turn to the left to loosen. You'll see it pop out like that. Once that pops out, we can remove the air filter itself. When we look at these, one thing I like to do is just check through each one of these baffles and look for any built up dust or sediment or debris or anything like that that can easily be either shooken out or gently blown out with an air compressor. If you can't clean it with simply that, it depends what type of filter you have, but most likely you're going to have to replace this filter. If you do have one of the ones that's a rubber one or a mesh one that you're able to wash out, then definitely you can wash it out with some warm water and soap. Make sure it's thoroughly dry before you reinsert it. Underneath here, this is going to be the actual air intake itself. This is where all that air comes in once it goes through this filter. The next part we're going to show you is this right here. This is the connector cable for the spark plug. The spark plug is going to be located directly underneath the terminal on the top that this connects into. This is what gives you that electric spark, that ignition portion for this type of combustion engine. The things we want to check on here is making sure that the connector itself isn't frayed or damaged. Take a look inside the cap, make sure there's no debris or sediment built up, which would mess up your conduction as far as that electricity. The next part here that I want to show you is we're going to actually take the wrench part of our T-handle. We're going to loosen up this spark plug. Remove it and take a look at it. So what I want to show you on the inside of this here that we want to take a look at and clean if it's dirty is you're going to find this L-shaped elbow that comes up in here, this flange essentially that comes up. And then there's going to be a little pin inside of there. That pin is the electrode for this. That's what creates that spark. In between the top of that pin and the bottom of this flange, per the manufacturer, it should be a 0.5 millimeter gap. Obviously, we're not going to bring out a tape measure and ruler and take a look at it, but just make sure it doesn't look bent or out of place and you have a very small gap in between. If you see any built up sediment or debris or crud or whatever it is, you can take some steel wool, some water, clean it off real good. Make sure you dry it completely. Then go ahead and reinstall it into your spark plug housing here. We're going to screw that in with our fingers. Take our wrench. Now, just as before, as we talked about, hand tight. We never want to over tighten all this stuff to where it strips it or makes it impossible for it to come out. So I've got that hand tight. Make sure there's no debris or sediment inside the cap of this electrode connector here. Go ahead and depress that all the way in, making sure we have good positive contact. While we have this open and you're checking it out, make sure you don't have any other type of debris or anything built up or sitting inside of this whole housing here. We want to make sure this is all clean. Remember, this is like the lung of the saw. Think of it as your lungs itself. If you're in a bunch of debris or dust and you breathe that in unfiltered, it's going to mess up your ability to breathe and get that oxygen. So same thing with this saw. Since it's a combustion engine, we need that oxygen coming in here. So if we have a bunch of sediment and debris and stuff in here and it gets sucked into the internal parts of this saw, it can really mess it up and prevent it from functioning. So making sure this stays clean is very important. So once we've done all that, our air filter is good. We're going to go ahead and set it back on top of the housing. For this one here, we depress that spring in. When we go ahead and hold it in, we start to twist it to the right till it catches. And then we're going to go ahead and again, hand tighten. Once that's good, we're hand tight, we're ready to go ahead and put the housing back on. The next thing I'm going to show you with your general care, maintenance, and also troubleshooting is going to be the starter cord assembly. There's going to be 4 screws located on here that we're going to unscrew and remove. This whole assembly will come off and we'll be able to show you the internals of it. So once we have those 4 screws loosened, we'll go ahead and remove the cover from the saw itself. Again, just like with the air filter cover, make sure we either take out the screws and set them to the side, or we keep them in the housing itself. What you're going to find in the inside here is going to be the spring assembly in here, which allows you to pull the starter cord and also retracts it. When we take this off, make sure that this freely goes out and it retracts itself in. If you find that this isn't retracting, we can spray it out with some compressed air, maybe some warm water and soap, or if the cord breaks, well, then we got to call logistics and get a new assembly. We don't really restring these unless you have the ability to, you have the extra cord, the right cord for it, and you really know how to. For you guys out there that aren't the most familiar with these saws, it's best if this starter cord breaks, order a new one of these from logistics. Inside of here, what we'll show you as well is these are going to be the two paws inside of here that the pull cord assembly catches on and actually spins this to start the saw itself. When we open this up, make sure we check that this electrical connection in here is not frayed, it's not damaged, there's nothing wrong with it. Your connection here is solid, it runs up into here. Make sure that when you look at this as well, since we have it open, clean it out. Use your air compressor, a brush, something, clean all the dirt and sediment out of here. After every time you use it, and then honestly on truck days. We should be opening this stuff up on truck days, and at a minimum, taking a peek inside, cleaning it, familiarizing ourselves with these tools. Everything looks good in here. I'm going to go ahead and put the assembly back on. When we do that, the only difference between taking off and putting it on is when I go to set this on top, I need to seat the assembly itself into those paws in the spindle. To do that, all you do is you simply set this on top, give this one or two little tugs, and as you can see there, and you'll feel it when it happens, it clicks open, seats itself into it, and now it's ready for you to screw in the screws. So for the next thing I'm going to go over is going to be changing out and removing the blade, because sometimes we got to put a new blade on if need be. Once we get that off and we show you that part, I'm actually going to show you guys how to remove the cover from the drive belt arm here and show you how to remove the tension from the belt to be able to inspect it for any damage or fray or whatever is going on with it. Make sure it's good, put it back on here, tension it back up, and get this thing back in service. So let's start with removing the blade itself. What you're going to find is on these bolts here, every one of them, well most of them at least, should have a directional arrow going counterclockwise and also off underneath it. What that's telling you is we have to turn this bolt counterclockwise, that means to the left, for those that don't know, in order to loosen this bolt itself. We're going to take our T-wrench here and we're going to find the small wrench side of it, make sure it fits on that bolt. Now when we go and loosen these, take these blades off, we can rotate these around. Some of them around the inner portion here should have a hole in it that you can take a separate screwdriver, set it through the shroud, and it'll actually hold the blade still for you while you loosen it. This blade does not have one of those. What it does have is these smaller holes around each of these vents here. So we can take a second screwdriver, set it in one of the holes of this blade, which will stop it from rotating any further. Take our T-wrench, put it on this bolt, and then we can go ahead and remove this here to allow us to take the blade off. Once I have most of the tension off of that, I can go ahead and just use my fingers and just take this off. Important key note here that I've learned from experience myself and messing it up. Make sure when you take these blades off, you remember the order and place that each of these components go in. If you don't, you'll put this back together the wrong way, and either the blade won't spin, it starts to wobble, or this screw may start coming off, and next thing you know, if you don't catch it quick enough, it can sling that blade off. Make sure you remember the order and place these go in. So as always, what I'll do is I take my bolt off. The next piece of this is going to be the shroud that goes over the blade itself. I can set my bolt through that, so I know that's going to be the outside of it. The blade itself will lift off. Here's our carbide tip blade. One thing is while I have this blade off to show you that's important to note, some of these blades are going to have an arrow on them. That arrow is the direction of rotation this is designed to work on. So when we put this back on, make sure that that arrow is lined up with the direction we want this blade spinning. Behind that blade, you're going to find a couple other parts here. You're going to find another shroud, and between the blade and the shroud, you'll also find one of these spacers. Make sure you remember what direction this spacer went. Easy way to do it. I took it off. That part goes into there. I put the shroud on top. Now I have this removed, and I'm ready to change it to a new blade if I need to. Once I have that off, the next thing I want to show you now is going to be removing this cover and taking the tension off of the drive belt so we can inspect the belt itself, or if we have to, change the belt. We have 3 bolts here that we need to loosen, and then you have this larger bolt here. This is going to be your tension bolt. There's 2 settings for it. You'll see a number 1 and a number 0. When this arrow on this bolt is pointed towards the number 1, that means the belt is under tension. When it's pointed towards the 0, that means the tension is relieved from this belt. So obviously, if we're going to be taking this off, we need to relieve the tension from that belt. All we need is one of our T-wrenches to go ahead and do that. So it's as simple as placing it on there, and it's a quarter turn. We've gone from 1 to 0. The tension is off of that belt. What I can do now is take my other T-wrench with the smaller head on it, go ahead, loosen these 3 bolts. As you can see, we already have some movement in the actual arm itself. Now, I have this up like this because I'm trying to show you a good angle of this, but I recommend if you're going to be doing this and working on this, it's definitely a lot easier if you lay this down flat so that you don't have to worry about holding it in place. So once I have those 3 bolts off, set that aside. What you're going to see inside of here is this is the drive belt itself. Here's the actual spindle for the blade part. So what we do is we pull this forward, we can pull this off. Make sure that this spins, there's going to be resistance on it, but make sure that it rotates without any real hard force whatsoever. Make sure that these bolts on here are nice and clean. Inspect the inside of it. Everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and set this off to the side. Next part we want to do is check our belt. So we check this belt in the same manner that we would check rope. If you guys are checking your rope, which we should. You want to just slowly pull this belt through all the way. Kind of notate where the riding starts as your beginning point, and you're going to rotate this all the way through. Kind of let it run through your fingers. Take your eyes on it. Make sure you're not finding any cracks. Make sure you're not finding any frays in it, any damage to it, anything that doesn't look normal. If you see anything that doesn't look normal, you see any damage to it, we need to change that belt. Remember, this belt needs to be at 100% so that we can have this saw working as it should. There's a lot of torque and pressure that's put on this belt to be able to get that saw to spin as fast as we need it. So I was saying, once we go through this, everything looks good. If by chance something is wrong with that belt and I need to change it out, it's as very simple as removing 2 screws. There's one here and one here. I'm going to go ahead and show you that real quick. And what these 2 screws are is they are what holds this outer shell covering the internal workings of this belt and the mechanisms for it. So I undo those 2 screws. I can take that shroud off, and now you can actually see the entire internal workings of this. Inside of here is the actual spindle that the belt lies onto. Right here is going to be your tensioner. So when we turn this bolt from 1 to 0, 0 being no tension, 1 being under tension, this spring here going forward is what actually pushes the whole blade arm forward and puts the tension on this belt so that when we pull that throttle and it drives it and keeps it under tension. Everything looks good in here. Let's say I had to change the belt. It's as simple as taking that off. Grab your new one. Make sure that the grooved edge, which you'll see here, is on the inside, smooth on the outside. The grooved edge is what's going to give you your grip on the spindle when we put that throttle going and the torque on it. So I take that new belt. I push that into there. Now I'm going to hold some tension on this while I take this shroud, and we're going to lay this back over the top, making sure that the belt stays on the inside of the shroud and doesn't get caught up. Once I've got that in there, what I'll do is just give this a quick tug, make sure that it spins freely, which it does. We'll go ahead and tighten these screws down, holding the shroud in place. Remember, it's just like with always, hand tight. I say this for a reason because firemen like to do things more than they need to. So this is good here. The belt's on, it's locked in place. Make sure before this next step that the tension is set to 0, 0 meaning no tension. The tension is off completely. So to put this back on, we're going to take those 3 bolts that are on the blade guard and with this front spindle for the belt. We're going to line them up with these 3 openings here and make sure that the belt itself goes over the front of this spindle. So we'll set those through. We line the belt on. Now what you can do here to help hold this in place and line it up is going to be to go ahead and put some tension on this belt. All we got to do, if you don't remember, is this bolt here, which is at 0, no tension. We just take our T-wrench, we set it on here, we just push that forward until it clicks into place at 1. Now what's nice is you guys can see, so now we've put tension on this belt here. And you see it still moves freely, but we've got a lot more tension on it, and this is where we want it before we put all the nuts onto these bolts here. So the next part I'm going to do is line these up here. I'm going to go ahead and just flip this over towards me some to give me a better angle to go ahead and screw these on. We have 3 of them here. We want to make sure we get these nice and tight. We don't cross thread them. Also, we don't over tighten. Hand tight. All right, so those are tight there. I'm just going to give myself a double check here. Everything looks good. I don't see anything wrong. Everything's in place. So the next part here is going to be putting the blade back on. So we just go in reverse order of how we took it off. So the way I set these down, this part here, everything stacked up, it just flips right over. So I take the shroud, I set it in place and line it up. I take the washer here with the spacer on it. I set that in where it needs to go. I take my blade, make sure that the arrow is going the direction that it needs to go. We're going to take this blade, set this in here, and it'll fit right on that spacer. Next part is going to be this other part of the shroud. Line it up, set it in place. And finally is going to be the screw. We go ahead and hand tighten this screw until it gets tight, and then we're going to give it a good wrench. Now, I've said up until this point everything needs to be hand tight. This is probably the only thing on here that you want to give that extra tight onto and do more than just hand tight, because we want to make sure that the screw doesn't come loose and this blade goes flying down the road. So we're going to be turning these clockwise here. So make sure you can take your second screwdriver, set it in one of those holds to hold this blade in place. Go ahead and take your other T-handle, and we're going to go ahead and tighten this down. Once you get it to where it's a good tightness, give it just one extra little turn on there, and we should be ready to go. Before we fully move past this point, just take your blade, give it a spin. It should spin freely. You shouldn't have to force this blade to spin either direction at this point. If you do have to force it, and there's a lot of tension on here, something isn't lined up properly, whether it be the belt or the internal components on the spindle here. Start back from square one, go back to where you took the belt off, start from there, rebuild it, make sure you have it the right sequence. If you don't, it won't work. One quick note I wanted to make sure to tell you guys is kind of a safety measure, and also talking about the parts of this saw, is going to be this part here on the saw. What this is the exhaust manifold, the muffler. This is where all that exhaust comes out here. The reason I'm telling you that is, one, so you don't suck all that exhaust down and put your face down on this side of the saw. Second being, when you turn this saw off or while you're using it, if you set it down to let it run at idle for a bit, this whole area is going to get hot. Do not touch this with your bare hands. And if you have gloves on, you're going to feel the heat through the gloves as well. Just be mindful of this.